Tim a lot say you, when you are doing this, when you are doing this. Anytime we say you, it's really your PLC group that we're thinking about. So, first thing, if you didn't get a piece of paper, you still need one. Tim's got a piece of paper. Is we want you guys to do a quick write. And if you remember the point of a quick write, the purpose of a quick write is to increase writing fluency. It is not about punctuation. We don't want to get kids hung up on that. It's not about grammar, spelling, or anything like that. It's about getting them to write for a period of time from start to finish. Okay? So we're going to do a quick write. Our quick write is, when you hear you are asked to design a lesson, whether from your PLC group or admin, that incorporates text analysis, what are the thoughts or feelings that you have when you hear that you need to do that? Positive or negative, doesn't matter. So if you can write for 2 to 3 minutes, quick write, when you hear that you are asked to design a lesson that incorporates text analysis, what are the thoughts or feelings that you have when you are asked? What are the things that are most important to you, that, good or bad, that you would want to share? What are the things that you think are most important that you would want to share? Circle the key words, or highlight them. Now we're going to ask you to turn to your nearest elbow partner, okay? And you don't have to punch him, but figure out who your elbow partner is, and go ahead and share those highlights or circles. What are the main things that you have anxiety or feel good about or concerned or?
I get anxiety about what text
Because that's always like
exactly, there's tons, that's why. So how do you pick which one? You always have you with those you were really wanting to try to do stuff. Yeah. Yeah, as I just look at sports, you know, we're like, okay.
30 more seconds to finish up this Can we get a couple of volunteers to tell us some of those thoughts or feelings, positive or negative? Just like put a plus there, it doesn't even have to be a positive, but positive or negative. Yeah.
I just put the concern is finding something that's a good text that's not too long that applies. An applicable text that it's not, it's succinct and
Yeah.
If you do find one that works, then they're gonna get a deeper comprehension that will stay with them, and so you don't have to do a lot of reteaching on that foundation.
So you guys know that it's important, you want to find them, but it's not always the easiest. Okay?
One of the challenges that I'm sure it's for everyone, but especially in special ed classes, is finding a text that meets the needs of sometimes a huge scope of students, sometimes from grade level all the way down to second grade reading level.
Going along those lines, finding a text for math that would add to what we are doing and not take time away and other focus away from our lesson.
A text that has a purpose.
Yes.
That will get an outcome.
Yes.
That is an outcome that you
Yes,
need.
that's difficult.
Same thing for us, just finding it to be applicable to physical education.
And other hands-on classes.
just start math and everybody else.
You said you.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes the kids get lost in having text analysis and our focus is not on actually what they're getting out of the text.
Okay. Yes.
I think one thing with text analysis is you can take the one article and read it over a course of a week, so maybe 2 or 3 times, and each time you can focus on a new topic or new idea. Or sometimes you may have a topic, but a kid reads it differently, and it relates, brings up a whole new topic. So it kind of, reading the same article a few times kind of, stimulates the mind to think.
You don't have to
differently.
limit yourself to a first and a second. There can be a fourth read.
Yeah.
Fourth, not third. Third read, fourth read, yeah.
There's always some concern of the kids that just don't read it, that just look at the page. And those are typically the ones that need most of the help. And then it becomes like, are they choosing not to read it because it's too complicated, too over their head as far as reading level? Or is it just that they don't really care to read it? Write that down.
I didn't get it.
Kids that choose not to read it, for whatever the reason may be. We're hoping that we can, embed some of these and answer some of these as we're going through ours. We know that, the feedback over the past year and a half when you guys have really been putting full effort into doing this, there's some anxiety, but sometimes it's about just having a piece rather than having a purpose. And so this Wicker is something that we want you guys to keep in mind with your Common Core and everything else. And just to go over this, who knows what the W stands for?
Writing.
Okay.
Inquiry.
Collaboration.
Organization. Reading.
And reading. And it doesn't have to be in this order. That was just the coolest way that the acronym went together was to say Wicker. Right? And reading critically, not just reading, but reading critically, reading with a purpose. So why this is important is that, research, and I'm sorry I'm going to throw a few things of research out there for you, but is that research has proven that when you scaffold all of these things and that you use it for learning and for guiding students, they comprehend the materials more. They get the concepts more when you can include all these things. They're able to articulate their own ideas by using all of these things. And so it also increases their complex levels of thinking. And so in everything that Common Core is saying that our kids need to be able to produce for us, if you can put these things in your daily lessons and keep that in mind, then they're going to be that much better at being able to produce and have the outcomes that you guys want. So in our Common Core trainings, they have come up with instructional sequence. This is not something that Tim and I designed. I want you guys to know that. This is something that Tim and I got to tweak with some input of some others a little bit to hopefully meet the needs of our school and our teachers and our kids. But it's not perfect. We'll go with that.
All right, so you need to have the piece of paper that says instructional sequence, and before I forget, one side is double-sided. Choose one side. It should look something like this. You should have it in there, it might be in the back. One side, I would say write on, the other side leave blank. We will be sending this out to you electronically so that you and your PLC groups could possibly type in it using the Google Apps, or kind of stretch the boxes to meet your needs or tweak it in some fashion that's going to help your PLC groups. Again, this is just a tool, hopefully, to make your time with your PLC groups more efficient. So I'm not going to go over a lot of the strategies because you're receiving the training on these, or you have already received the training on the strategies, but just kind of the purpose of kind of how this is laid out and how it can be effective within your groups, kind of leading the discussion. All right, before I begin, any questions? Does everyone have this? All right, so we're going to start with, obviously, we added this to the paper, the unit essential question and the lesson essential question, just because we thought when we were looking at this, I think it brings a lot of focus, because what we talked about with finding a good text that applies that becomes the issue a lot of times, and just focusing, what is our unit question? What are they going to have to be able to answer at the end? What do I want them to be able to answer either before they leave today, or when the lesson is finished tomorrow, or the next day? That's that focus. Hopefully, obviously, the lesson essential questions are going to make them, if they can answer all of those, then they should be able to answer the unit essential question. Okay, so we're just kind of mapping it down. We changed this to artifact. We don't know if there's maybe a better word, but it used to say text. And I think a lot of times when we talk about text analysis, we get hung up on the text piece. It doesn't have to necessarily be a piece of text. It could be a cartoon, it could be a video, it could be a paragraph, it could be a song,
Piece of art.
yeah, a piece of art, a visual, it doesn't matter. It's something that you're going to use and analyze and all that. Yeah, that's what I was saying, like some type of instructional medium or media or whatever it may be. But a lot of times we really get caught up in the text portion, and that isn't quite necessary. And then the reason why we made this a little bit, and kind of getting to this part, we made it some space under there because the focus needs to be, why are we selecting this artifact? Okay, a lot of times, we read the first 10 amendments. We read the Bill of Rights, but why are we reading them? Are we going to focus on just one, or the Second Amendment, or the Fourth Amendment, or whatever it may be? Why are we focusing on that one? And then I think that really focuses our instruction, because then that gets to the next piece. We're going to have to connect the kids to this content and somehow, and that may be depending on why we focus focus on a certain artifact. What are we going to do with the first read? What are we going to do with the second read, and so on? So I think that is probably one of the most important pieces, and we've already kind of talked about it. Is the why are we choosing? We've all been guilty of choosing an article, well, because it was in the textbook and I wanted the kids to read it, but why? Why this piece as opposed to that piece? All right, now we're going to move on down to that those next set of boxes where it says front loading. What do students need to know before the first read? Now I'm going to give you a minute or so to write down some of the strategies that you already use in the classroom to connect students to the content. As an example, one of the things I like to do is I'll give them the title of the article on the board. I won't give them the article yet, and I'll say, what do you think this article is going to be about? Just to get them thinking and writing a little bit. I'll have them do that in the left-hand page. So just some of the strategies that you use, quickly write them down, and then we'll share some. Front loading with the students, connecting them to the topic. PE said last time, they say, have you ever played this sport before? Do you have any experience? Do you know someone that has played this sport? Okay. 30 seconds. All right, any volunteers on what are some of the strategies you use to front load?
And add to your own list if you're a good
Yeah.
idea.
For English, we would just sometimes give them a hypothetical situation, so they were going through an article on flag burning, and so I just set up a hypothetical situation for them and asked if you, or I think I asked them, should you have the right to burn the American flag? And we have flags in the classroom, so I got it down and kind of threw it on the floor and said, what do you think about that? Can I light this on fire right now?
Just to, stimulate some conversation and.
Right, and it kind of got them arguing about, yes,
Yeah.
you should be able to, no, you shouldn't, and then when the article was in front of them, they were kind of interested to see, okay, does this person agree with me or disagree with what I just wrote down? I made a quick write, pardon me, on their
Okay,
response.
and that's all, yeah, that's a quick and easy one, quick writes about maybe a topic that is connected in some fashion. Anything else? Oh,
Well, for science, we often do a demo
okay.
of something and then ask them to explain it.
That would work well with math, too.
In history, making connections to time periods, asking what movies or books take place.
I'll share a couple so you can add to your list that came from the other group. I'm gonna have a great list by the end. Just short discussions with each other, with about a specific question. Connecting with cognates that exist, or asking about signs or posters that they may have seen with like certain words or things like that. You don't have to.
All right, and the next piece is strategies. Obviously, you're going to have, we're not going to get really into this because you're going to get training on this, or did they already get training on vocabulary? Okay, you're going to get training on academic vocabulary. But it is always a good idea, obviously, to read the article that you're assigning beforehand and find the tough words that, if you struggle with a word, or then they're going to struggle with a word, and we're becoming a bring your own device campus, so possibly you could have them look it up, or you could have it looked up ahead of time to make it more efficient. Yes?
Could you give them a vocabulary list the day before and have them do the vocabulary list the day before?
I'm gonna
Yeah,
wait
we
and let
should.
the academic
Yeah,
vocabulary
sorry.
answer because their answer is gonna be no.
Oh,
List.
okay. All right. Now, the next piece, this is we want to spend some time on, text-dependent questions. Now, I know that the way that this kind of chart is designed, I don't know if I would design it this way with this separated with only, the idea that text-dependent questions is you're going to need to develop some questions that they need to be able to answer after the first read. Okay? And the whole purpose of that is to focus their first read. Why are they reading it the first time? What are they trying to get out of that first read? Are they looking just for emotion? Are they looking for time period? Are they trying to make connections? Are they just looking for the characters involved? What do they say? But they should be able to, you should develop, and this is like Penny said, this is one of the more difficult things to do. It seems simple, but to develop text-dependent questions, it's going to take a lot of time with your PLC groups to kind of come up with those, but that will then focus their first read, and then you should have some text-dependent questions for possibly their second read. And you guys, they're going to get more strategies right tomorrow with their first read and their second read, but that's what would go in those boxes. But basically, what are you trying to get the students to understand with this first read? What are they trying to pull out for the second read?
So just to clarify, so for that first read, you want them to have a focus. We're moving away from just a clean read, getting a feel for what it's about.
It depends.
It depends, because it could be maybe a text-dependent question that you ask them at the end of their first read. It can still be a clean read. I've had the luxury of being in a lot of English classrooms. You guys don't just do a first and a second. You do several more after that. So I think it's making sure that we aren't just asking questions that they can answer, but that we're asking questions where they need what they just read and evidence from it and quotes from it and all those different things that you guys use in order to answer the question. So
could be-
we're
yeah.
not trying to change anything.
Yeah.
We're just saying it can still, it can still be the same. And we're not trying to say, that you can't do the number all the paragraphs and then do your first read of highlight all the adjectives, or, how everybody has different ways of what they do. It's still flexible. It's just that Common Core is saying you've got to have text-dependent questions. So they're saying you need to think of these questions before you do the first read. It's back to having the purpose, So whether it's, giving them a political cartoon and asking them a very specific question that they need to take something from the political cartoon in order to answer. But it's all about the spending the time in your PLC group to design those questions ahead of time. They are not easy to create. And there aren't a whole lot of examples out there, but if you do get a chance to look at Avid Weekly, even if they don't have an article in the moment for your specific thing, they use text-dependent questions, 2 or 3 tops, when they have a lesson, but it may start getting you thinking about how you can create those in your own lesson planning that you're doing.
And obviously they should refer kind of back to that lesson essential question. If they can answer all of the text-dependent questions, realistically then they should be able to answer.
Because it goes back to the purpose. I can tell you 100% I have been guilty about knowing that this poem ties to my theme for Avid and saying, oh, we should read this, and I don't really have a point of why we're going to read it other than it's kind of cool. This is forcing you to, when you pick something, maybe you're not picking something first and building around it. Maybe you should be deciding what it is you need and then find the piece that's going to support it and creating those questions.
I know. Okay, and so then the collaborative conversation, they're getting training, or they just got.
They just had it.
Yeah.
And did you guys see that you kind of have an A to Z list at the end? Okay.
And again, this doesn't necessarily have to be in this order. I like to have the daily writing activity before the collaborative conversation. So this isn't necessarily an order of how you have to do it every single day. I just think students are more comfortable with speaking even in front of the class or even with their peers once they've thought about a topic and have written on the topic. They're just more confident. And so I tend to have the daily, but it could be something simple as an exit card out the door for that daily writing activity.
This had originally, when it was given to us from Common Core, that particular box said writing prompt. And we wanted to get away from that because it gives the impression that everything has to end in like an essay. And it's really, so we put daily in there, and again, it doesn't have to sit there, but the writing activity that we had you guys do today was the quick write at the beginning. It was kind of, to help see where people are at. So that's where the box lands. But just keep in mind, that's just different things you can put in there. It can be the summary at the end of your cat notes. It can be a brainstorm, on the left side of your notebooks about whatever topic it is that you're getting them to think about. So there's a lot of different things, but it's just the important piece of remembering that writing should be in every day.
And then hopefully we've given you kind of a tool that you can use within your PLC groups when you meet on Mondays, and you do need to design a lesson that you can use, make your time more efficient and focused. That's the goal.
And on the PLC time on Mondays, you guys, you've gotten really good at bringing your tests together, or bringing your essays to norm, or whatever it is, and comparing scores. And so a lot of your feedback forms have been, we've done this, we're designing a lesson based on these results. Well, maybe our feedback forms are going to turn into, if this is what you guys did, instead of writing a feedback form that we planned a lesson, submit the lesson. Let us see what it is that you guys thought about, because you're definitely utilizing your PLC time. But extra writing if you're doing something like this. Back to this. So I kind of pointed out where our writing was. You guys see where our inquiry was in our lesson just today? The questions that we asked you, the questions that you're asking yourselves, what we're asking you to ask yourself when you're planning. The collaboration, find it. What strategy was it? You're a little partners. Organization. What are you guys using right now?
A chart.
A graphic organizer. Yeah, it can be all sorts of things. And then reading. We didn't have a whole lot of reading other than reading a chart. And we definitely didn't have critical reading in this one. but we tried to have something that you had to look at and read words. So, questions? We are about done with our time, but we have this 10-minute break. Questions? Please, before you guys leave, I would like you to do one of two things, not one of, but both of. I'd like you to fill out your feedback form so you don't forget. That is super important for us. And if you didn't already put your name on the inside, make sure that you do it because we're going to photocopy them so you can have your name kits back tomorrow. And to take out your notes to self and update it. If there was any aha moments between this morning and now that you haven't already put on there.